Hi, welcome to Relish Books. Today I'm talking about All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This came out in 2014, and kind of the reason that I am going to talk about it a little bit today is because I remember at the time it was such a huge deal. I remember people were so excited about it in a way that I hadn't like seen with a new book ever before, at least in kind of like my little sphere of the world. Um this book that I was hearing about from everywhere, not only like online or in bookstores and stuff, but also I was seeing people around me like actually reading it and being excited about it, which is something that I hadn't ever really experienced before. And I remember thinking, um, maybe this was a book that would go on to be a classic from our time. And I kind of want to do like a series of books. Kind of want to make a little video series talking about books that I think potentially could be classics that are remembered from our time, which is something that's super, super fun to think about for me. But it's pretty much impossible to tell because if you think about classics from the past, a lot of them are books that were not popular in their own time, and nobody back then, or almost nobody, would have ever known that they would have gone on to have the popularity and acclaim that they do now. And I think things haven't really changed in that regard. I think the books that'll be held up as classics from this generation are probably mostly ones that we aren't really thinking about right now. But it's still fun to speculate, and I guess I'll say kind of at the end of the video whether I think this book kind of deserves a place as a classic for later on. It has been a while since I read it. I didn't read it until probably a couple years until after it was out. But it was exciting because I went and heard Anthony Doerr give a reading at in my hometown. He was there for like a writers conference, which I didn't attend the conference, but they had like anyone could like go to the readings of their guest writers and speakers, and I went to it, and it was super exciting. If I remember right, it seems like so long ago. It really wasn't that long ago. It was like 6 years ago, I guess. And I can't remember. I think I may have actually read the book right before going to the conference because I like knew that or the reading because I knew that I wanted to. But I think it was pretty fresh for me at the time, which I guess it had only been a couple of years since the book had come out. But yeah, it was really exciting. It was a really big deal. It was like the first time I had, seen an author like that in person. It was super exciting. He didn't read from the book, which shouldn't have been surprising. For some reason, I thought he would just like read passages from the book. But he like read a short story or something, and he was a really good reader. It was really gripping. And then there was like a question and answer session with the crowd. And of course, I was way, way, way too shy to have asked any questions, even if I had wanted to. But I remember I was like, oh man, he probably saw me in the crowd because the people directly on either side of me both asked questions. So I was kind of like shrinking into my seat, but it was pretty exciting. I got this copy at, I think I got this at a thrift store several years later. At the time, I didn't have my own copy. I'd gotten it from the library. So I didn't get in line to like have him sign my book because, I would have had to buy one that was there. And also, I think we were with a friend who had asked a question, I think, in the question and answer session and felt like he kind of, I don't remember exactly what it was or how it went, but he didn't really like the question, I think. And she felt like he kind of like blew her off, which maybe he did. I don't really remember how it all went, but she didn't really want to wait in line to get her book signed, and yeah, I would have had to like buy one and wait in a super long line. The line was crazy, and so I was kind of like, nah, it's fine. I was super shy anyway. Now, of course, I wish I had just to have it, because that'd be neat. Like, not only have a signed copy, but having met the author. The next year, though, I went to the conference in the town, and their speaker was Diane Ackerman, and I did stand in line to meet her and get her to sign my book. And I will talk about her book in another video, but that was way better. But anyway, yeah, that was still super exciting. He was a really good speaker. Really neat to hear him in person. That being said, I think this book is really, really good. And I think it's unique because I think he's one of those authors. I could be wrong. I hope he proves me wrong. But I really do think, even though he's won all kinds of prizes for a lot of his other work, I do kind of feel like he's a one-hit wonder kind of author. I've read a couple of his other books. I tried to read Memory Wall and The Shell Collector and didn't do that. And then I did read his novel About Grace, which had some good things in it, but overall not stunning. And then his novel Cloud Cuckoo Land, which just came out a couple years ago, was a huge disappointment. I picked it up off and on, tried to get through it. It is, I mean, unless there's some amazing finish at the end, it's so bad. Like, it's really poorly done. He has all these different plot lines going at the same time, and not only are they different plot lines, but they're totally different time periods. He's trying to connect all these different ages, which maybe at the end has some great climax. If anybody's read that and thinks that the end is good and it's worth going through all the way, please let me know and I'll maybe give it another try. But just the writing itself is not very good either, which is so disappointing when an author kind of goes downhill, because you always hope that they're always going to be getting better. But I don't know. Everybody has their prime, and yeah, I really think this is kind of a one-time thing. But the book is really amazing. The descriptions are largely what I remember. They're beautiful. It's a World War II story, but it's unique. There's so many World War II stories, and World War I. Just the World Wars were so unique to the world, and there's so much to them. There's constantly new stories being told, and they're fascinating. Just so many different aspects. This is fiction, and it even has a bit of a supernatural twist to it. You're not really sure how much, but there's like this magic, maybe cursed gemstone that kind of goes through the story. And honestly, I think that's one of the weaker points of the book, and if it was more of a big deal, I would like it less. But he ends up working it in pretty well. And again, he has two separate plot lines in this book, but they connect in a timely fashion. They're from the same, they're in the same world, they're in the same time period, but half of it kind of takes place with this young German boy, Werner, and then the other half is with, I'm not sure how you say her name, Marie Laure, maybe, who's French. That's probably why I don't know how to say her name. A young blind girl, and both of their stories are super gripping. They're good characters. Yeah, I think both of them are really interesting. I particularly liked. Well, I was gonna say I liked her story better, but I feel like I liked them pretty equally, which is some high praise. But I don't know. There's a lot of neat plot things. Marie's father works in the museum, and he's a lockmaker, I believe. And I think he guards like this super famous jewel. And he builds, there's the whole storyline of him building the miniature city for her so that she can feel it and know the city, because, she's blind, and kind of the father-daughter relationship there. And then he goes missing and she's all alone. Anyway, Werner is, eventually growing up and having to go to war. And it's a really great book. It's really fascinating. What was it, though, that made it really stand out to everybody at the time? It won the Pulitzer Prize. And yeah, not only was it critically acclaimed, but people, like all kinds of different people, were reading it. And I don't really know. I think it's one of those books that just hits that perfect just hits that perfect mix of like being gripping and being critically well done, but still being a story that appeals to everybody because of what it's about. I don't know, it's just like a perfect mix, which is why I kind of feel like he's never really going to do anything better. I think he just really struggled with that one. And as far as all indications show, he's not really ever going to do that again. And yeah, at the time I was like, maybe this book is going to be like the classic of our time, because it really just felt like, the biggest book. I had like a list of readers from, I think the book was made in England. Anyway, I had this list of top 100 books from this certain group of people that were polled like in a year. And there's a ton of classics on there. And that book made it on there. I was just like, maybe it's really going to be a classic. But it's been a few years, and people have really kind of stopped talking about it. I think they are making like a series. I don't know if it's Netflix. I think there's going to be some sort of series about it. Which I always felt like it would make a really good movie if somebody did it right. But nobody really does those things right. They change too much stuff all the time. I don't know why. But yeah, the series, I'd be interested to see it if they do it well. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it really will go down in history as a classic that's really remembered for like hundreds of years to come. It's not that good. It was, it was hugely popular, and then, I guess it's been 10 years ago. 10 years later, people are not really talking about it anymore, not really reading it. I'm not seeing it on book lists anymore. And you never know, books have phases. It could come back. But looking back at it, again, it's beautifully written. It's a really cool story. But I don't think it has enough lasting quality to it. For one thing, and I don't think it makes it a bad book, but like when I finished it at the time, looking back, I will say, like, I think it's a really good book. I think it's definitely worth reading if you haven't. But when I first finished it, I was kind of upset by it. I was like, what is the point of this? Because you get through all this stuff, and at the end, it really felt pointless to me. It's tragic and all that. And I was like, what's the point of this? Like, was it really worth it? But I don't know, thinking back on it, giving it some time and space, I do think it's worth it. If only for, to be thought-provoking. And it's okay that it's sad. Like, you can imagine most war stories are going to be sad, at least in some way. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be passed down through the ages, but I don't know. I do think it's at least worth a mention on possibly being one of those books. Because not only books that were unpopular in their time went on to become classics. There were books that were hugely popular in their time and just stayed popular. Dickens and, some of the Brontes. I don't know, Jane Austen? I'm not sure. I don't know. A lot of these people were very popular in their time, but those people that were popular in their time, that their books endured, I think were authors who were consistently putting out good work every time. Like Dickens, he has books that are by far worse than others, but he doesn't have a really bad book. Or if he does, it's like one or two in the midst of his, I feel like these authors that were so popular in their time, they're consistently putting out, like every book they put out is a classic. And that just really shows how great they are, not just like they got lucky kind of type thing. I'm not saying that this book doesn't have massive amounts of work put into it. It definitely does. But I think it was kind of just like a lucky thing that it just perfectly appealed to so many people. And he definitely has not been able to do that with any of his other books. And again, I don't think he ever will. So that's kind of why I don't think he's going to really go down in history. But again, great writer. Yeah, a lot of good stuff in his books. I feel like he needs to... His books could use a little more positive perspective, I feel like. Because again, these authors, I've talked about it kind of before, it's just my personal belief that these authors that don't really believe in anything aren't going to produce really great books. You have to have kind of a mindset of something higher if you're going to write something truly, earth-shaking, basically. But anyway, that's what I think about that one. It was a huge deal a few years ago, and maybe it'll come back and be a huge deal again hundreds of years from now. You never know. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.